colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen of the insurance industry. Welcome back to the PIRA IIAP CPI PIC webinar series designed to help you with your digitalization process and to offer insights from various experts, both local and foreign. We are now nearing the end of season 2, and this is our 5th offering. Today's session once again promises to be of great value, especially given the fact that we have one of the best subject matter experts on board to share her thoughts and insights with us. Our topic today is entitled Taking the Path Forward, and to help us do that, our esteemed speaker, who shall be formally introduced by Francis, as usual, shall be providing us with a look into the requisite data, tools, and trends for the insurance and financial services industry. But before that, let me turn you over to CPI's Ms. Ito Bruet for a few words, then on to Ms. Shelley for house rules and other admin issues before we go over to Francis. So, Ito?
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Mitch. Welcome, Geia, to the insurance industry. We hope you will find it fruitful, as I'm sure all of us will really learn a lot this afternoon. And to everyone who's participating today, we would like to once again thank you for being here. And all of us, diba? We're in this together. So we're all really going forward together. So as Mitch said, today will be our last session for season 2, but we're already plotting maybe for Q1, no, of 2021. But really, we hope you have gained a lot of insights from the season, and also have enjoyed, being together and all, having all these very lively discussions, because we've certainly enjoyed putting all of these together for you. Kaya parang we don't want to stop, no? And so we would really look forward also. Today we're going to talk about data. So we look forward to getting information from you as to what you would like us to offer you for the next season, so that whatever it is we do will be relevant, no? And timely for your needs. So I will stop now. I will again greet everyone a warm welcome and good afternoon, and turn over to Shell for our house rules.
Right. So good afternoon. So I'm pitching in for Carl this afternoon. It's going to be an exciting topic, so I'm going to make it short. Feel free to use our chat, for if you want to ask questions. Already, respectful, kind, and we really want it to be very engaging as we will have our last session. So looking forward to your interesting questions and your participation as well. So turning over to Sir Francis, and good afternoon again, everyone.
Thank you, Shirley. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go right into it. Our speaker today is the Industry Analytical Head of Google Southeast Asia. She leads a team of industry analysts who accelerates the growth of consumer packaged goods and retail industry in the ASEAN and the emerging South Asia. She's also a member of the prestigious Institute of Practitioners in Advertising in London, as she is part of the 2020 cohort of the IPA Excellence Diploma. The IPA, for your information, is the Professional Institute for Advertising, Media and Marketing Agencies in the UK. Our speaker's experience and skills as a digital analyst and strategist is immense, and she has garnered numerous honors and awards through her journey. And how I wish we have something like her in the insurance industry. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give Ms. Geia Lopez a warm virtual welcome. Geia?
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here to share with you the path forward for insurance and the financial industry. So let me just show my slides now. Hopefully all well and good, yeah?
I think it's still loading.
I'm only Ayan. Yeah.
You're seeing it already. All right. I will now,
Yeah.
let me just quickly move this so that,
The screen is cut lang there.
Yeah.
okay, how about now? All good?
It's still cut. Half. We only see half.
Not the full screen?
No, not the full screen.
Ah, let's try again. Share this screen. Better?
No pa rin.
It's still blocked. You know, 50, I'm sure that 50% of Gaia's presentation will do a lot of good, but I prefer we get
No,
100%, right?
we see 100%. I agree. There might be a challenge here, but it should be okay. Let me try again. One last time. Still a no.
Yeah, why don't you try na lang the if not
Yeah.
presenter slides, just make the ano bigger.
Yeah, let me try and do this.
Yeah.
Try.
Because I think if it's not on presentation mode, we can see the entire
We
screen.
can see the entire screen, yeah.
Okay. Let me just okay. Try that again.
While Gaia is tinkering with her presentation materials, I just like to say that, of course, we had a talk with Gaia already the other week, and she shared with us some insights about the kind of data that is out there. And as I was saying, the insurance industry needs somebody like her to think the data through, actually. So that's why we thought of putting her on, and of course, she's the expert when it comes to strategizing through the data.
As
How
they
are
say,
things in your visibility now?
it's still the same. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, let me try one last thing.
But Francis, just taking off from what you said, remember what they say: data is the new oil.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's but you know the data can be raw, and that's one thing that the insurance industry really needs, because I think there's still a lack of big data for the industry, and so it is and not just the data, but the interpretation of the data is going to be very important, so that you can
Mhm.
use it to to plot your direction and focus, right? So
Would you like me to share my screen instead, Jaya? Would you like to?
Sorry. Sure, why not?
Let me try that.
actually, so Shelly, you'll just try to share.
From my,
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe while Charles is doing that, I can talk a little bit more about the path forward. So it's been a couple of months since we had our first experience of the lockdown with ECQ in March, and everyone since then has been thinking about like how do we pivot our business. This is going to be a long run thing. In the beginning, we thought it was going to be like SARS, where the impact was more of like 2 3 months, and then after that we could see like a fast recovery. But unfortunately, this was not the case for this specific pandemic, and we need to think about how we operate our businesses, how we work together with our partners and our clients for a longer time period. So it's more of a sustained change that really now it's a necessity to think about this versus like an option, you know? So we thought about paving this path forward for everyone, and then the path forward remains to be uncertain, but we think if we look at signals properly, if we have the right sense about where to where to find those signs in the data, so we could properly navigate, we could still we could still reimagine and be able to think about ways to pivot our businesses and ramp up for that kind of change.
Give me a couple more minutes.
Sige.
All right, so sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm very, very excited to share with you what we have.
Just as excited to hear about it.
Yeah, suspense.
As they say, save the best for last, right? Ito?
Yeah. Ako rin, ha? Let me see if I can
I think we could use the PDF if that's
Yeah.
if it's a challenge, no? Let me try and do that.
Wala ko ma-contribute dito, Kicks. Kasi we'll leave the technical glitch to the technical experts.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
sandali na lang yan. There's always a way.
You cannot expect the dinosaurs to help you here, Ito.
Speak for yourself, Francis. Dinosaur.
There. Can you see? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Ayan. Okay, but Geia, you're on mute, ha? Just in case you're talking na.
Okay.
Ayan.
Okay. Let's go. Let's go for this. Should we do a full screen on this, or the tab here at the side with the four corners, I think, beside the plus. Mhm. Okay. Ayan.
Okay.
See, I think
Better.
that's a
Yeah.
good demonstration about pivoting and really thinking about the path forward today, no? So we all know as business leaders that the decisions we make today have long-lasting effects to the shape of the business in the future. But in times of crisis, such as the time we all find ourselves in, not every decision can be made with perfect information. So what we're trying to do today with you is to help you by offering some information that will help you get ready for the path forward. And the next slide, what it will just show is that how we're actually living and leading in a historic moment. So the word unprecedented has been used so much in relation to this situation, and rightly so, because a lot of the decisions we had to make in the past few months have been very different, and they had to happen at a much faster pace. You will hear CMO saying maybe their process that usually could take like 3 years, they had to do in 3 months, or like things like that. That's how the pace of change is right now. And with all of that, think about all the so many things that you have to consider. It's a challenge to figure out which one to prioritize. But you can look at it from that side, and you can look at it from the other side where it's a historic moment and you're that leader who can lead your team through this change. And when we think about this change, we'll see in the next slide, and as you will see in the following slides, actually, a lot of this, all of this is Philippines data. And all of this is readily accessible. It's free on our platforms. You can easily search for it. For example, this is the mobility report that we release. Like every week, we update this. And what's great about this is what you're seeing now is the country poll for the decrease or increase in navigations in certain areas. But if you download the Excel file, you'll actually be able to drill them down into region specific data, so that if you have like nationwide operations, you could then gauge. So for example, like workplaces, if I just look at the ones that we called maybe 2 weeks ago, we're seeing an increase now to more mobility in the workplaces right now. right? So we know that business as usual, it can be challenged. Prior to COVID-19, our idea of disruption was the kind brought about by innovations, right? We're being disrupted because someone's creating an innovative way to engage with our consumers or innovative product. But we've experienced now that other forces like a crisis can also increase the velocity of change. So as you can see, there has been a decline in people's mobility while we see a steady like recovery every week as quarantine quarantine situations change and evolve. It still is a negative versus the baseline where what we usually see when it comes to like the normal navigations. But there's been an increase in residential as people continue to stay at home, understandably, right? And as we move from the panic, the shock, and reactive strategies, we're able to step back and see the bigger picture. In the next slide, you will see that if we take inspiration from history, we know that the decisions we make during the crisis can make a big impact in the recovery. I mean, while this is unprecedented as a specific pandemic, throughout human history, we've always had these ups and downs, right? Whether it's an economic downturn or it's a big global pandemic throughout our history. And throughout history, we also know that human beings learn how to bounce back from different types of crises. So it's just a matter of what do we need to learn and take away from this crisis? How do we operate differently? What services should we offer? How do we think about the entire like customer experience for non-life insurance? And how should we use this time where we might not have as much clients, for example, to maybe repivot, rejig how we operate as a business so that when it starts to pick up, we're more than ready to really maximize and take all of those opportunities when it comes. So when it comes to history, it's important to be reminded of this truth. But for us to be able to make those right decisions that will impact our future, we need to be able to identify the different signals from these different states. I was talking about, how do you make sense out of everything that's happening? How do you even navigate, right? So, and you don't need to be a data scientist to do this. This is, we will show in the next slide that it's actually more about the shape of the trends, right? And the trends that you could access yourself. I'll talk about it a little bit more later in Google Trends. So we've seen throughout at least the couple of months that we've been in lockdown, like the whole world has been in this kind of situation, that there is like a pattern that we see in the trends. One that is a gradual shoot up and then goes down, or it could be also like a sharp shooting down and then recovery back up. It could be the same, right? It's a shock state where there's sudden interest in something or sudden lack of interest in something, and then because of an event, and then it normalizes. So let's say, for example, during not yet insurance specific, but during Taal eruption, you will have face masks shoot up and then go down, right? Or during the first quarantine period, searches for face masks again shoot up and then go down. And then every time there is a new announcement of like what the new quarantine procedures will be, there will be a shoot up, but not as big as the first few ones, because it's not shocking anymore that you will need to stock up on essentials. So you can see that kind of shape and observe that for your industry, and we'll look at examples a little bit later. The second one is what we call step change. And in step change, you see like a sustained interest over time. So these are the kinds of things that maybe you want to already think about, that these things will stick, unlike the shock parts, right? So these things will really stick. And we should think about how we should incorporate them in our strategy. And then lastly, the speed up, which is your accelerated state. And it's a matter of how quickly do we incorporate this into the way that we operate. What are the quick wins and what are the big ones that we need to like plot out for 2021 and moving forward. So in the next slide, we'll show you an example of shock. Okay, so you will see here disaster. So the blue line is 2020 and the red line is 2019. So you can do this on your own, like on Google Trends, trends.google.com. You will see a place where you can type in a search query, a topic. And if you type in the same topic, it will now unlock a filter. So what I've tried to do here was change the filter, one of which will be 2020 and the other one will be 2019, so that I can quickly see how it did versus the previous year. And you'll see there, like in the blue line for disaster insurance, like sharp increases at the start of the year, understandably so, because of the Taal eruption, and then some spikes at certain times in the during the course of the quarantine, right? So that's disaster insurance. On the other hand, on credit insurance, it's a monthly spike. It's a monthly spike of people searching for credit insurance, perhaps because they are defaulting on their loans, or they may be thinking about, oh, what do I do now, right? How do I navigate? But that's the shape of, and it's still higher than from last year. So you will see that in certain like categories, there will be, it's not a sustained or accelerated increase, but there are moments when it's big. And how do you now capture those shock events, right? So um, when things are uncertain, people feel that they need more, whether it's stocking up on essentials, non-insurance, or making sure they have something to lean on when something happens. Now, on the next slide, you'll see step change examples. And this is a so very clearly here, of course, last year there was no one searching for COVID insurance, but you see a sustained like in interest in the topic. Other than that, other like topical events that actually have and influence the way we should think about the experiences in the insurance industry is how people are now. It's a big step change because we've always talked about the underbanked and unbanked in the country. The adoption for things like e-wallets or digital banking has been slow at best. But right now, because of the pandemic, it's a matter of survival, right? So we do really see like a sustained and not a shock behavior on things like learning how to transfer money from BDO to GCash, how to do bills payment, how to how to do it in the safety of their own home. Sometimes, and maybe even most of the time, knowing our population without a bank account. So for these types of shapes of trends, then we really need to take that into account. For example, if you would have like how do your clients pay for their monthly pay for their monthly or quarterly or annual payments? Is it still very analog and traditional, or are you already providing ways for them to pay it in the safety of their homes? Lastly, speed up. In the next slide, one big thing here is the whole e-commerce adoption. And the reason why I call this out, even if it's not very specific to insurance, is that when people are now like we're very excited to release in the next few weeks like the latest Google Temasek and Bain report, where we it's not gonna be a surprise that e-commerce is accelerating across the region. But what this tells you is that with more and more Filipinos adopting online shopping, other goods and services could also now be sold in the same platforms. So these photos are actually insurance products that are being sold on Lazada today. There are already websites where you could compare different types of insurance products across different providers. And it allows people to make decisions even before they reach out to someone representing those companies or services, right? So they're shortlisting, they're they're thinking about which ones. That whole like prospecting behavior is not something that we're seeing as agents, right? So what we know is that someone directly contacts us already, but how do you get to that part where they're actually still thinking about it? That's the best time when they're still considering their options. That's the best time to actually influence the way that they think about things. And right now, that whole like shopping behavior is something that we're seeing that's accelerating, being ingrained in the Filipino culture, right? And should now extend to all other products and services moving forward. So even if, for example, there are still certain categories where it's still best to close or handshake on the agreement in person. Maybe the way that they research about it might be more digital in nature. And we see this as if there's one shape that we know to be true in the next slide, it's the shape of our digital acceleration. So what you will see here is how much we will accelerate in terms of 4G connections and smartphone connections in the next few years. We will have 90 million Filipinos online by 2025. So it's not going to be just a, you know, it's not anymore. It's actually not anymore like a niche platform. It's a mainstream platform already by now, but it's going to be even more so in the next coming years. 2025, it's not very far along, and it will be accelerated. It will be accelerated. This number, I think, will change very much once we share with you the latest of the reports. But if earlier on, like last year, this was what we reported: 4x internet economy by 2025. Right? So how are we preparing for that bigger internet economy brought about not just by how fast growing 4G and smartphone connections are, but also how the pandemic required everyone to stay at home and do things virtually. So I believe there's no question when it comes to mindset. That's why you're here today, and that's great. But the real challenge, if we reflect on the past few months, is readiness, right? So, in the next slide, we'll share with you a framework that hopefully will help you navigate the changing times. But these are the questions that come to mind. How do we lead our teams towards readiness? What exactly do we need to prepare? So, what we'd like to introduce in the next slide is the 3R. It's a framework by which we're showing you how you could prepare your business for that recovery period. So this framework includes these 3 steps. First one is about recognizing signals and acting on them. Second would be reimagining, exploring how your organization could generate value in changing times. And then lastly, ramping up. So how do we ramp up the digital transformation? And we'll go through this journey together. Hopefully, help by the end of the session, you have like a mental framework that will help you unlock those steps and really prioritize, right? So, let's go. Let's go to recognizing now. So it's about recognizing the signals from the noise and acting on them. The next slide after this shows you that it's not, it's not so much. You don't have to. It's hard times right now. We need to be wise about how we look at signals. And we'd like to share with you that there are a lot of like public tools like Google Trends. Everything you've seen so far was actually Google Trends. And the next one is actually, and I'll show it a little bit more in the next slide, will be the Google Mobility Reports. There's Sync with Google. There's Google Analytics as well. All of these things have a free version or are free, really just offered as free. And whatever insights you now would have, you could now translate those into campaigns. No, it could be search ads, for example. And search is great because you only get to pay for the people who either click on the ad, or if you would like to do a little bit more of tinkering, only pay for maybe optimize it towards people who actually sign up and opt in to get called by an agent. Maybe if we go back to the previous slide, I'd like to give attention to Google Trends, right? So this is how Google Trends look like. Just go to trends.google.com. You can put in any keyword there, or you can pick a category, and you will be able to see a trend line based on the searches of, in this case, users in the Philippines for that specific topic. It not only provides you with a trend line. If you scroll down, which is actually something I've already screenshotted here in the same slide, you will see two things. One would be like a heat map of which cities or regions these searches are coming from. Again, if you have a nationwide operation, this is great. You can mobilize your teams and say, it looks like, for example, for vehicle insurance, you have Manila and Quezon City as the top. But if you would like a region, this is based on cities. So if you would like a region view, you'll just need to click that and you'll see our region view. On the other hand, you'll also be able to see not just top searches. So these are top searches in relation to vehicle insurance. So when people are searching for vehicle insurance, what are they specifically searching about? So these show the top searches in relation to that. But one of my favorites would also be rising searches. And you'll see that as well in Google Trends. It will show you the trending topics, kumbaga, of what people are searching for. And it will show you also like by how much it is growing on a year on year. So we could look at perhaps like top searches are top searches by volume, and rising searches are top searches by year on year growth, right? So that's Google Trends. The other one, which is in the next slide, is the Google Mobility Report. Okay, so this is the Google Mobility Report. Again, just search for Google Mobility Report and you'll see it. And you can look into, every country will have a PDF every week uploaded into the site. You will now see like the top line report for the country. But if it matters to you that you see it by region, you can do that as well. All you have to do is download the Excel file, and a little bit of maybe pivot tabling or filtering would allow you to just look at the Philippines data, right? And if you are very, if you want to be technical about it, you could look at the trend lines over time as well. But I think the week-on-week changes just give us a sense of how close are we to recovery period. Maybe in some areas we are closer to the baseline. In some areas, maybe we're more challenged, and maybe we could put our resources and attention in those areas, or we might have to really digitize in the places where it's not moving along as quickly as we'd hope. All right, so not all trends are the same. And the next slide you will, and it's important to now think about this in the form of shapes for your specific industry. So for example, in the shock, you would see like a credit insurance, disaster insurance, like a dip in travel insurance, and it's still there, but it's slowly recovering, right? But that's the downward shock pattern that I was talking about, where maybe people will lose interest because something else is in the top of their minds. But we can observe that trend line recovering using Google Trends. Step change, you'll have things like mode of payment, new services, things like COVID insurance, or in speed up, maybe thinking about digital commerce, how we drive consideration in digital channels, how they could navigate their account, learn about their deadlines, maybe be able to manage their accounts online. Now, that interest in the transition as a parent, yeah, that comes with many challenges. So in the next slide, this is when we start to think about the entire consumer journey, right? So things like, and this has happened to me personally, but in life insurance, I didn't have to like look into my username. Like I think the moment I signed up, they gave me my username and password. I never had to think about it until COVID, and then suddenly I don't know anything, right? So someone has to give me this kind of support. So for what they do when you forget your username or your password, right? Or do you get support, or is it really more of a creating maybe message tracks, like best practices in messaging for your agents, so that when they, or for the relationship managers, so that when they get into these kinds of conversations, you would people could expect like a really standard and best practice approach. Ease of use, so things like how to open an account online, how to pay bills, how to maybe do like auto debit, etc. Might also be thought about. The other thing that I noticed, well, because I had to like sign up for that auto debit, would be the whole you need to print it out and then put a signature and then scan it and come back. I think that could be a friction area for people that might not have printers. Maybe think about those as well. So that's and you would know this much better, right? And just think about the entire experience. Where in which areas you think you might have friction when it comes to like people might want some support. People might have difficulties in terms of signing up to something, providing actual signatures, etc. But at the same time, think about possible services that people are looking into, or you could provide knowing the changes in the way people behave and operate within your category. Like one of the curious things we found, for example, would be Gcash insurance. People searching for that, right? So perhaps this is the unbanked thinking about ways to get a little bit of insurance, the sachet version of insurance. So for some of, I did see like the sachet versions for life and health. Like already, I think it's being sold in Lazada, but might be something that you might also want to think about. And it's apparent. I mean, even if you think about outside of the industry, let's say um, telco, prepaid broadband, right? So usually like a premium product, you have to sign in, you have to be able to commit a certain amount of money every month. But now they now have a service called prepaid broadband, which allows them to um, grow their reach. But it's a sachet version of what they used to offer. Next would be so after recognizing is about reimagining. So now that you've seen how digital has been the way of life for most Filipinos, in the next slide, how do we reimagine the way we engage with our customers? Okay, so I think this is the interesting part, and maybe I'd like to maybe after this or think about have a thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts later, like things that you might reimagine. I think hearing by itself, I think hearing about all of the trends that you've seen, hearing and seeing all of the trends I've shown earlier, might have created a lot of what ifs for you. Those are the starting points, I think, that will allow you to reimagine the entire user experience, whether it's from the point of view of uh, the insured or the insurer, right? There might be a lot of things there that would need a little bit more optimization, a little bit more ease of use, maybe new services, right? So just to create some of those what ifs. We already talked about the what ifs of let's say payments or like customer support during this time, right? So just some thoughts here, and this is more like finance related, financial industry related. In the next slide, what if financial services implemented online versions of their traditional experiences? Or what if the Filipino path to purchase increasingly becomes digital? I was telling you about this earlier, that the whole like consideration phase might be happening without you knowing or without you being part of that conversation, and you have to be there because that's the best time to influence them, right? Or what if the expectations for customer experience continue to heighten? Okay, so we already see some of those trends coming in, like pitting e-wallets against each other, finding the best. I think there was a global study on, and you can replicate this on Google Trends, best versus cheap, right? And people will be looking at looking at best first, so quality versus the just looking at the price. And because we're all just staying at home and we're all just engaging in digital experiences, we're then going to be more primed towards great digital experiences. So that's something that we might want to think about. So that's about reimagining. And maybe after, when we open to questions or comments or ideas, I'd love to hear some of those what ifs for your industry. Lastly, it's about ramping up. So how do we ramp up the digital transformation, right? Um, as people rely on the internet to research before they buy online or before they leave their houses, in the next slide, to purchase or avail of a specific service, businesses need to be discoverable on using Google My Business. It's another free thing. So if you're listed on Google My Business, then you're discoverable. When people search for your specific like category, or if you even listed your location, if they look for like let's say vehicle insurance near me or property insurance near me, then the mapping technology comes into play. And if you put your address on Google My Business, then you could be one of the first um, businesses that are being featured, that are highlighted to that person who's searching for it. It's a free tool. You can actually make your website here also very easy. So you can use this for free to make a presence online, publish relevant information such as your branch address, directions, opening hours if you have, or hotline if you have like a Viber group or like a chat group on Facebook, you can also do so, right? You can post photos of products and services. You can put a link to your website. So it would also allow them to chat with you, and you can show up in Google search and in Google Maps. The other one is capturing demand with Google search. So this is two points that I want to make here. One is the autocomplete function. So I told you about Google Trends. Great. The other thing that I would like you to maybe look into would be if you open your Google Chrome browser in incognito. And incognito is important so that it doesn't take in like your historical searching behavior. It would treat you like a normal person in that geography, say the Philippines. And as you're typing, like for example, best insurance or best property insurance, it will the autocomplete function would work, and those suggested search terms are actually the top search terms that people are searching for in relation to the topic you just typed. So again, very quick like insights. So I'm sure you would always have like hypotheses on how these things will evolve, what possible new products or services we could provide, what people are looking for. This is a quick way to validate some of those hypotheses that you might have, so that you can translate those thoughts into action. So that's one, right? Again, a free way of inciting. But the other part of it is activating with Google search ads. So that's another thing altogether, right? So, but what's great is that there are free resources, tutorials for you, certifications for you to learn how to do this on your own. And it's a platform, it's an ads platform. You just load your credit card into there. Maybe start with your brand name. Maybe start with your category. What actual insurance products and services you're providing. Put it there, and then create your first set of search ads. What's great about it is you only pay for people who are clicking on it, right? In the same way that you only really spend time with the people who raise their hand and say I'm interested, right? In the physical world, that's also what it does. So you only invest in the people who raised their hand and said I'm actually very much interested, please give me more information. And they might be doing it by clicking on the ad, they might be doing it by visiting the website, they might be doing it by asking a question, signing up on the FAQs, etc. But these are the kinds of people that you will be paying for when you when you do search advertising. So it's a very practical way of activating your insights. And I'd urge you to maybe have a look at that maybe next time. Right? So next slide, it's all about approaching them across various platforms to deliver relevant messages that drive action. So this is already the next level. So first, you need to know your customers. You need to plot their experience, where they are. So this is the whole mapping and reimagining the consumer journey, because the one we knew of before relied a lot on like physical experiences, right? And we invest a lot when it comes to thinking about like where to best meet our client, how to best engage with them, right? How to represent ourselves very well, how to drive credibility, what types of forms should we create, how is it easy for people to use. Well, all of these things come into the physical experience of availing an insurance product or service. But now I think it's the time to reimagine and think about what's the digital version of all of those things that I've been meticulously thinking of, I've been meticulous about before, right? So and at every step of the journey, I've only talked about search now, but there's so much more that you can do after your first few successes in search. You can do things like remarketing. So meaning people who might have clicked on your ad in the same way, like, okay, so in the same way that maybe someone might have said, oh, I'm interested, let's grab a cup of coffee, tell me about the product, right? And then of course they might not sign up for it on the same day. They say, let me think about it and get back to you. So that's like real world. In the digital world, they might go to the website, browse a little bit, not come back. And maybe because they're doing so many things and there's no human to follow them up, they might forget it. Remarketing is them seeing the ad again and reminding them, oh, I remember I was there in the website. Remember, and this the layman version of this could be the Lazada ad that keeps following you around. You might have browsed like a pair of, maybe like a vase, something, or a pair of cups, and suddenly they follow you wherever you are, and it reminds you of the things that you've browsed that you're trying not to put in your cart, but it's so persistent that you maybe sometimes actually convert and end up buying them because it follows you. It's the same, right? So every great agent is very very good at the subtle or the hard follow-ups depending on their client. And that's what remarketing is all about. It's being able to appear in the right moments with the right message so that the people that may have expressed interest in you, maybe by going to the website, could revisit that thought and hopefully convert into a client. Now, which leads us to the other thing, people going into the website, right? So let's say first time you meet your client, you smile, you say hello, you shake their hand, right? And then everything starts from there. A good handshake establishes perhaps like a good relationship in the future. Next slide. What shows you is that what we found is that like 50% of the people who try to visit your site will actually drop off if the site doesn't load in like 2 to 3 seconds, right? So it's like they're turned off. And if you think about it again from that physical story, like they offer their hand for a handshake, and you pause for like 3 seconds or more. Maybe usually, if you use Test My Site, you might realize that you're actually making people wait for like 10 to 12 seconds. So imagine someone reaches their hand out to you, smiling in a handshake, and you just look at them for 10 to 12 seconds. Right? So that's what we're doing when we're not creating like a fast way to load the site. They're interested and we're not as interested. So this is a free way to help you understand how fast your website actually loads. Okay, so just put your website there and then it will give diagnostics. And at the end of it, it will show like number one, how fast or slow your website loads on 3G and I think 2G devices. Number two, it will also give you like pointers, things that you might need to change. For example, the images in your website are actually super heavy, which is what's making it load so slow. So it will give you like a simple to complex tips, depending on how complex your website is, on how to optimize your mobile site loading speed. and you can download it and share that with maybe a more technical team. But if you're the one who's managing the site, I think should be also manageable for you, right? So that's Test My Site. And we did see like companies who focus on improving their customer experience has seen as much as a 200% growth in revenue. So sometimes you're like, people are clicking on my ads, but somehow we're not, there's not a lot of people who end up like converting. So maybe digital marketing is not working well for me, but this is what's happening. The handshake is not the best experience. So we've lost them there. They said hello and we weren't as excited to meet them. So maybe try doing that first and see how it will really improve your results. Now, lastly, it's about lead generation. So the great thing, again, coming back to search, is that these are people who are actively raising their hands saying, I'm interested. I mean, for any like sales agent, this is the hardest thing because you take a guess, like based on their lifestyle on Facebook, based on their common friends, maybe that they're most likely interested, or you just pick up like a list of corporations, a list of small and medium enterprises, and based perhaps on your client list already, you would know who would most likely convert, and that's built into every great sales agent. But that's I think the power of digital is it helps amplify that kind of power, because you have people here, audiences with the intent, really raising their hands saying, I'm interested. You could maybe even look at what we call similar audiences, right? People who might display similar characteristics, which might make them possibly even higher chance of converting, just like the people that have converted with you. And then eventually, and this is already like next level, but just to let you know that it's possible, in other countries this is being done, that they have a lifetime value model already. So based on the clients that tend to maybe spend more on insurance, tend to pay on time, etc., be able to create like not just like a DNA of that kind of user, but and then find those in the internet, but in a very safe and data privacy knowing way, but also be able to adjust your investment models. Maybe you like, it's the same way, right? In the physical world, you are willing to invest more in building the relationship of high potential clients. In the digital world, you are willing perhaps to invest more on digital advertising for potentially high LTV clients, right? So which leads me to maybe my last few slides here before we go into questions. The future of marketing is all about delivering meaning, and you are the experts of like that great user experience. It's just a matter of, I think, reimagining it. The humanity and the experience when insurance is about, feeling safe. It's about knowing that in the tough times, I would have something to lean on, right? So that's the role that you play in the lives of people. And it's a relationship that you build over time. You know this very well. It's just a matter of reimagining that and how that plays in a digital experience. So you would be the best resource. And I'm talking about, I think it's the next slide already, no? But I'm talking about here that you take you might not be the expert yet in digital marketing, in digital platforms, in understanding signals and data, but you know what a great customer experience, a client experience would be. Use that as your guiding light, your north star, when you now reimagine the whole consumer journey. So in the last slide, I think the next slide, these are the things that I just want to leave with you. How can you leverage technology to provide the best experience? How can you gather and leverage data to be more helpful? Maybe even end up with new products or services. And then eventually, as you start now, it might be just Google My Business, a little bit of a search campaign, but eventually, how do you reach them across the different channels throughout their financial journey, right? So that's the path forward. In summary, we need to recognize the signals, how people are shifting more to digital as a new way of life, right? I'm just summarizing here in the next slide. We need to leverage the tools available to get as much insights and act on them, right? Next, we need to reimagine how we need to engage with our consumers, thinking that our organizations are now more than just a physical space, but an online experience. And we need to bring that, that level of humanity into the digital experience as well. And that customers expect you to be more than just functional, but specific to this category, really like supportive, make you feel safe, that you're making the right decisions and you're being helpful. And lastly, the need to explore the leveraging the power of data and technology, starting with baby steps, maybe all the way to, lifetime value modeling to provide the best online experience and to provide relevant products, content, and messaging throughout your customer's digital journey. And with that, I thank you. That's the end of my session. I hope this makes you feel ready for the path forward.
Hi. Thank you, Gia. I hope we can see you now.
Oh, hello. Sorry. Yes, hi.
Hi.
I am here.
I wanted to
Wow.
make a comment a while ago because I think for comparing life and non-life, I think life insurance is a few notches ahead of non-life when it comes to digital transformation and all of that. And but to non-life, I think to many of us here, what you talked about is night and day for us. I think for many of us still, no. But but we've been hearing from our previous webinars that this is something that you need to do now, or else you will be left behind. So and when you were talking about doing what you're saying is we're practically doing everything digital now, even prospecting. When you prospect your future clients, you now can do it digitally through all the Google sites that we can access, and they are all free, right?
Correct. Yes, unless you advertise on Google search, but other than that, a lot of the things that I've shared are free tools.
Mm-hmm.
You know what, Francis, Geia, insurers should think of creating a digital transformation team whose job is to locate, use, and maximize the use of these free tools that are already available. To be able to leverage all these things, I think the time is now. Can't wait for tomorrow. You have a lot of C-suite people in the audience now, and that's what I'm telling them. Uh, they
Uh,
have to do it now. Tomorrow's going to be too late.
uh,
It's there
there's a
already, sayang. Ang daming information that you can mine. There's a lot of information that you can turn into sales and your next steps.
exactly.
So I don't know what, maybe, kasi, thank you, Geia. You told us that it's out there. Maybe we didn't even know it was there. I for one, didn't know it was there. But now, it's so rich. My God, sayang. If we don't use it, we're the losers.
Mhm.
Thank
I
you
think
very
that's
much for sharing that.
yes. Thank you, Mitch and Francis for sharing some like very early reactions to the path forward. But I think that's the feeling that we all have. No? We this is we haven't had to think about this as urgently as now. And I can imagine how overwhelming it must be for everyone to even think about like where do I start if everything needs to change, right? And I mean, and if business is at a slowdown, how can I even invest in like infrastructure to start this? And this is why we wanted to point out that a lot of these things, the maybe the thinking, the re-strategizing, there are tools that would help you do that now for free. So you could get like like an understanding of the changing consumer demand, or where the recovery is happening, in which like subcategories of insurance, or in which regions and cities in the Philippines, right? So we could be a little bit more focused. Kasi you can't naman say, okay, bukas digital transformation na tayo lahat, di ba? Hindi naman pwede ganyan.
Yeah.
Wala namang company na kayang gawin yun, even like the biggest corporation. So it's
Right.
really more of a focus. Okay, so given all of this, and you would also have your own hypotheses, you're experts in this. It's just a matter of gaining confidence that, you know what, this trend reinforces what I think I was observing, and this gives
Yeah.
me confidence. Maybe let's mobilize this part.